Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it's Thursday, the 14th of September, 2023, day 568 of Vladimir Putin's wrecking of the Russian economy like nobody ever thought it could be wrecked. I'm Peter Alexievich, and I want to respond here to Virgo's comment. Virgo. Yuck. I mean, really? Astrology? It's no wonder you're so annoying and ill-informed. That's where we're going to start with Virgo's comment here. He makes this statement. He's going on in the comments about how Russia's making all this money on oil and gas and production is up and they have plenty of oil and gas and blah, 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 blah. And it's all a lot of nonsense. So just so that nobody is confused by this person's ignorance, let's look at what he says here. 1.3 million was an all-time record. I don't even know what that number is of. Production isn't down. You really need to stop believing all this BS, mate. Whatever. Okay. So let's look at a couple of things. First, if we take a look here, this is world demand for oil every year for the last 20 years or so. And you can see it's not a steep curve. And you can see the COVID years, things are down, but generally the trend continues upward. Although it's nearly level, like we're learning, we're looking at other things. 1 in 4 new cars sold in the US this year will be hybrid or electric. And so that's, considering that in the last 20 years, the world population has gone up by 1 billion people, we don't see a commensurate rise in oil consumption. So that's good. That's a good move. We're headed in the right direction. Now, this is how much oil we use every day, about 100 million barrels a day. It's a lot of oil, right? Now, where does this oil come from? These are the top oil-producing nations in the world. The United States, actually in April of this year, now this data only is for 2022, but in April of this year, the U.S. became a net exporter of oil when its daily production went above 12.4 million barrels. So good news. U.S. is in 2022 produced 11.9 million barrels a day. Saudi Arabia came in second at 10.6, and Russia was third at 10.2, 10.3 if we round it up a little bit. And then you can see the other major producers. Now, who uses all this oil every day? Far and away, the largest use of oil is the United States, with 4% of the world's population and 20% almost of the world's daily oil consumption. And that's a real problem that the United States needs to look at. And if we look down the list there, you can see that Russia comes in at number 5. Of the 10.4 million barrels a day that they produce, they use about 3.5 of them, making them one of the world's largest exporters of oil. Who else are the large exporters of oil? The biggest global consortium of oil producers are the OPEC and OPEC Plus community, or cartels, if you want to, call it what it is. These guys have been consistently reducing production over the last 18 months. That is simply a fact of life. Back in November of 2022, they dropped production by 2 million barrels a day, the largest single decrease in oil production in history, to tighten up the market and drive up the price of oil. But because of the war, because of a global economic slowdown, very in large part driven by this war, it didn't work. And so to drive the price up further, additional cuts were announced. In February of 2023, Putin announced a unilateral cut of 500,000 barrels a day. in Russian oil production. And that was quickly followed up in April with another 1.66 million barrels a day from the OPEC Plus consortium. So don't tell me that the world isn't producing less oil or that Russia isn't producing less oil. It's down dramatically. And again, it's down in order to artificially inflate the price. Now, this was just extended. These oil cuts from the OPEC Plus nations was just extended. This is just from September the 5th, this announcement, that these cuts would be extended through to the end of the year. So we can expect to see one of the tightest oil markets in history right now. What has the impact of this been on global and Russian prices? Because, of course, we have the Russian sanctions. Here you can see globally the price of Brent, the benchmark barrel of oil in US dollars, is trading at about $92 a barrel. While the price cap for the Russian Urals crude is set at 60, it is trading slightly above that at 62. Now dig it though. Russia's not making any money on that. Why? Because the equipment is old, because the inefficiencies in the system, in the Russian system, mean that it costs them $42 to $45 a barrel to get oil out of the ground. That's twice as much as most civilized countries. That's twice as much as it costs to get a single barrel of North Sea Brent or West Texas crude out of the ground. Even Venezuela, with its inefficiencies, does better than $42 a barrel in production costs. Further, there's no pipelines. The pipelines are smashed. This oil's not running through the pipelines anymore. It's got to go on ships, and it costs an additional $12 a barrel. That means it's costing Russia between $54 and $57 a barrel just to get the shit on a ship and send it someplace. That's not a recipe for making money. And we can see it here with Russia's oil and gas revenues. Before the war, at the end of 2021, Russia was taking in about 775 million euros a day, or about $850 million a day in oil and gas sales. Today, they're taking in about 500 million euros a day, or about $550 million a day. That's an annualized loss of over $100 billion in oil revenues. The tax revenues alone from the sales of these products is hitting the Treasury down 30% on oil tax revenues, down 90% on natural gas because there's no pipelines, right? And they don't have the facilities to liquefy it. So the gas revenues have just dried up. So to Virgo and all you Rusky fanboys out there, you can think whatever you want, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Russia's fucked. Get used to it.